Hey, this is Adam.
And Matt.
And here's what's coming up on this week's CarCast. I wouldn't marry a supermodel, and I wouldn't pick out my favorite car and make it my everyday car, because it just becomes your everyday car.
Yeah, I would drive that every day, and I would marry a supermodel. So we differ there.
Yeah, but see, then the supermodel gets downgraded to just some chick who shit up the bathroom the other day when you came home early from work, and then it becomes weird, you know? But that's the problem, is eventually your new car does not become your new car. It's just your car.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're yelling at the supermodel, "Get out of the way, you're blocking the fucking TV set." Listen for free through iTunes, the free Adam Carolla app, or visit acecarcast.com.
This is Carolla Digital.
Hello, my little gummy worms. It's me, Allison. Before the show officially starts, a few words. Gary, I think we have some iTunes comments of the week.
Allison wants your iTunes comments. Allison wants them, yes she does. Please leave her some iTunes comments and don't forget to click 5 stars.
All right, our first iTunes comment of the week comes from Earlyville, and it is titled "Maybe Too Good?" ?
Is there such a thing?
Allison has some kind of knack for spinning straw into gold. She has any interviewer I've ever heard beat for her ability to make the prosaic fascinating and funny. Most recently, she made a conversation about overpouring milk into a cereal bowl interesting. She has a unique acuity for identifying the right point in a conversation to pivot into personal matters inoffensively while nailing a one-liner at the perfect moment. Why do public people feel so uncomfortable talking about things they've never shared before? Because they're talking to Allison.
So comfortable?
I did say uncomfortable, and that was my mistake. It
That's
definitely
okay.
says comfortable here.
I'm still thinking about his use of the word acuity.
Yeah, I like prosaic, too.
I know. It's very excellent work.
There's a bit more here.
I know. It takes a dark turn right here. Here it
Earlyville
goes.
also says, sure, her politics are misguided.
Excuse you very much.
But she listens to the other side, as you can hear on AC's podcast. That puts her head and shoulders above the ideological kin in the podcast world. Listen to this podcast. Her ability to get people to divulge details about their lives would have gotten her burned as a witch 1,000 years ago.
Thank you very much, kind of. But I do appreciate the comment, and this just goes to show that if you say enough nice things about me, I don't mind what you think of my politics.
All right, the next one comes from Lofi Companion. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, and it is titled Interesting and Touching. Very addictive show. I have gone back and listened to both of the Bobcat Goldthwait episodes at least 3 times. I've always liked Bobcat, but after listening to Allison talk to him about what he finds funny, the different kinds of work he does, and where his ideas come from, I am now an even bigger fan of both of them. I continually hear Allison ask questions of her guests that I never hear in their other interviews.
Thank you for all the smoke you're blowing up my buns.
And the last one is by Kelvis92. You are my new best friend.
I am. !
I swear I turned down a lunch date with a real-life friend yesterday because I didn't want to pause your interview with Elizabeth Lame. Then I was channel surfing and screamed out loud when I saw you on some True Hollywood story on Kate Gosling. I seriously felt like I had stumbled on my BFF on TV. Not that I'm some crazy shut-in, it's just that listening to your podcast genuinely feels like spending some quality time with an old friend. And just as if you were my real friend, I am super annoyed at you for getting that stupid Whitesnake song stuck in my head. Twizzler and all. Grrr! Keep up the good pod.
Well, what was that one person's name?
That was from Kelvis92.
Guess what, Kelvis92? There's a little more Twizzler talk on this episode, but it's tucked at the end. As for the True Hollywood story thing, I didn't even know that I was in that Kate Gosling thing. If you sit down with E and you do an interview, they will cut that up and use it in different True Hollywood stories and whatnot. So I get comments like that quite a bit because I am very famous. My face is everywhere. I have important things to say, and I am very humble. That actually brings up something that I'm going to talk about on the next episode. Oh, that was just a tease, you guys. Okay, so if you would like your comment to perhaps be an iTunes comment of the week, make it full of compliments and just leave it on iTunes and click 5 stars. And as I've said before, I begin to feel a little bit worried that you guys are thinking like, oh, she just selects comments that talk about how much everyone loves her and what a great interviewer she is. Yeah. Pretty much guilty as charged. But we love your comments, all of them, and it helps keep the show rated high on iTunes, and then that helps with everything, and it helps more people to discover the show, which is what I want. I love you guys. Okay. Also, I need to say a few words about some of our favorite sponsors, Stamps.com. If you are going to the post office and dealing with all the bad moods that people are in at the post office and perhaps spending up to 5,000 hours while you're trying to get your stuff done at the post office, there's a better way, you guys. There's a better way to live. It is the way I currently live. I don't even know where my post office is because I have Stamps.com, which means that I can print out official U.S. postage with my home computer and my home printer, and I never pay 1 cent more, 1 red cent. I don't even know what a red cent is because I don't pay it. I know exactly how much postage to put on my parcels and packages and letters and what have you, because there's a scale that they throw in, a free scale. It's fun. Plug it into your computer, weigh anything on your desk. You could weigh your cat if you have a cat. I would never have a cat because I'm allergic. But if I had one, I would weigh it, and then I would send it to someone who's not allergic. You guys need this. In this day and age, there's no reason to inconvenience yourself by going to the post office when you can just do everything on demand when you want it with Stamps.com. So right now, use my name, Allison, for a special offer. It's a no-risk trial. It's a $110 bonus offer, which includes a digital scale and up to $55 of free postage, which is a mind-bogglingly awesome deal, and I can't believe they're throwing in $55 of free postage because that's a lot. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com. Before you do anything else, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Allison. That's Stamps.com. Enter Allison. Also, Go to Meeting. Gary and I have used this, and we love it. Let's say you are, where are you? You could be in Jamaica. You could be in Jamaica, Queens. You could be at a coffee house. You could just be in your living room. The bottom line is, if you need to have a meeting with the people that you work with, you do not want to have to schlep your buns. I've said it. That's the second time I said that. I'm into bun schlepping, evidently, right now. You don't want to have to haul your butt, there we go, into the office and meet with them face-to-face when you can do it in a much more pleasant and convenient and efficient way on your computer or on your iPad if you download the Citrix app onto your iPad. This is the way that people will be meeting in the future. You can get all your work done. You can see each other really well because it's GoToMeeting with HD faces, so it's like crystal clear quality. You can hear each other. You can collaborate on documents. It is awesome.
Not only that, but you can give control of somebody else in the meeting, give somebody else in the meeting control over your computer. So if you're collaborating on like an Excel document or some kind of a, script or something, anything, you can give control of your mouse and keyboard over to another person so that from their laptop, they can make the alterations that they think are necessary. And you can avoid the extraneous time of them trying to explain what they want changed and why. You can just let them do it, and then you guys can discuss. So it's a cool feature. There's 10, 15 cool features like that, and we just don't have time to go over them all, but it's an excellent product. It's built for business, and unlike some of the free other web-based video chat stuff, this does not break down. We've used it 10 or 15 times, and it's always working.
Right. But you guys can try it free. Start hosting your own face-to-face online meetings today with GoToMeeting, and my listeners can try it free for 45 days. 45 days! Don't wait. For this special offer, visit GoToMeeting.com, click on the Try It Free button, and use the promo code Allison. That's me. I'm Allison. That's why that's the promo code. Be sure to use the promo code Allison. All right. Here is an episode that many people are already very excited about. I know I am, because I already heard it. The guest is Duncan Trussell. We love him. You will love him. Please love this episode. I love you guys. That is a lot of love. There's a lot of love happening in the last 20 seconds of this. Here's the episode. Bye, you guys. I love you.
Alison Rosen. Alison Rosen is your new best friend. Alison. With her the good times never end. Alison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Alison Rosen, Alison's your new best friend.
Hey everyone, hi, hello, it's me, Alison Rosen. Welcome to another episode of Alison Rosen is Your New Best Friend. There's a tickle in my throat. I'm just warning you guys. My guest today is the one and only Duncan Trussell, comedian, actor, writer, producer. Do you produce?
I have a podcast. Does that count as production?
No. And podcast host. No, it does, actually. You're a producer.
It's a foggy term.
It really is. Sometimes it's a bullshit term. It's like a thank you for your money. I will refer to you as a producer.
Well, yeah, it's like a way that you don't have to commission your manager.
Yes. So you also host a podcast and produce it, the Duncan Trussell Family Hour.
Yes.
You used to host the Lavender Hour.
Yes, co-host.
And co-host. And you are you Deathsquad? I'm still trying to wrap my head around what Deathsquad is.
That's another foggy term, I think, that doesn't have any clear. There's Brian Redband's Death Squad Studios, and which is sort of his.
Is that in Olive Garden?
yeah, I think he'd like it if it was, but that's like his thing. So, it seems like it's become a kind of umbrella term for me, Joe Rogan, Joey Diaz,
Bert
Kreischer, Jason Tebow, Tripoli. I don't know. There's like a group of people who sort of rotate through Rogan's and Brian's podcast, and I guess if you make enough appearances, people just start assuming that you're a member of this.
Well, I announced on the Bert Kreischer episode that I wanted Deathsquad to love me and embrace me and accept me, and so I've been getting a lot of really nice tweets from them.
Huh.
So I want to be honorary Deathsquad, I think. I think I am already. Maybe I want to graduate from honorary to real.
Well,
legit.
we've got to come up with some initiations then. Like, we have to come up with some, like, if we're going to, like, go, like, make it official, there has to be a series of tests, initiations,
hazing?
Hazing
I'm not
is
into
what
that.
I'm getting at.
What do you think it would be?
I don't know. I mean, I think it would vary from person to person. An initiation is such a curious thing. That's the problem with the moment you start categorizing a group of people is you immediately create a state of dualism, which can only produce conflict.
Dualism, like either you're in or you're out?
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like the moment you come up with any, like, for example, from time to time, a blog will release a top 10 comedians of America.
From time to time.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And somehow just anyone can make a list. And when you make the list,
right, either you're great and you include us, or you're not great and you don't.
But it's so manipulative because let's say that you've got a website and there's an advertisement on the website for Ford, and you're like, how do I get a lot of hits on this website? Oh, I know. I'll put a list, and on that list, I'll put a bunch of people with Twitter followers and say that they're great.
Yeah.
And then inevitably, like 5 of them will be like, I got all the best comics to watch list, guys.
Right.
And they'll tweet it, and then it drives all this traffic to this arbitrary list of comedians that anyone could have invented. But ultimately, what it does is it gets a lot of hits on the Ford advertisement that they're doing, and it makes them a shitload of money because they manipulated a bunch of narcissists, which is like the easiest thing to do on the planet.
Right. Yeah. I come from I have a journalism background, and when I worked in print journalism, there was a lot more of a division of advertising and editorial. And as that was when I was in an alternative weekly to begin with, it was like you weren't even really the advertising was in a different room, and I remember one guy called me to pitch me a story, and he told me that, like, his friend who worked in advertising had recommended that he pitch me, and I knew that, like, something wrong happened. Like, that was never supposed to be communicated to me, because now that I know, I can't. I don't want to do it, and I can't, and I feel weird, and I feel dirty.
Yeah.
That was probably the last time that it was ever that pure. And then when I worked in New York at different magazines, there was it was beginning to break down, but still the editors really did choose. Not based on advertising. But when you were making a list of 10 comics or 10 restaurants or 10 whatever, it was always like, you got to get new. It has to be new. It has to be something we haven't done before. It has to be, have to have a good mix of gender and of ethnicity. That makes it sound like there's a ton of genders. All 5 genders.
That would be great.
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't just like, what do I think is the funniest, or who do I think is the best band, or this or that. There was like so many things they were trying to hit. And then now with the web, you're right. Like, it's that division between advertising and editorial, I feel like it's like a cheesecloth.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you definitely don't get the luxury of not knowing what you're advertising. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine about this video that I did for Comedy Central's video division, which at the time was Adam TV, but I think that dissolved. But we shot this thing, and then we made it up on the internet, and I go and click on it, and the commercial at the beginning was for Axe body spray, and it was like a 5-minute Axe or 2-minute commercial. It was really embarrassing because that product is like innately embarrassing, and cheesy, kind of like it's one of those cases where a corporation did some analysis of their demographic and created a passive-aggressive response to just thinking that their demographic was idiots, which happens a lot of the times with these bastards, is that they deplore their demographic because they're really smart people, but they recognize, like, yeah, douchebags love to spray our poison on their bodies. So
you're that cynical about it? You think it really is like a in-your-face douches?
Well, no, I just think that they're sort of like making this rudimentary analysis of the widest swath of people that they can, and then trying to do a kind of tongue-in-cheek mirror of them, but still appeal to the basic drives that they think represent their demographic, which for Axe appears to be putting date rape drugs in people's drinks and like just the most vile references to like their cocks, but whatever. I don't care if it works if people like to spray that. I think it's like 14-year-olds dust themselves with it. I don't think it's like anyone over the age of 14 is spraying Axe on their balls.
Right.
You'd have to be such an idiot to do that. But
is it meant for your balls?
Oh yeah, man, you got to keep your
Gary just nodded too.
Keep your
Everyone knows
gear
this?
clean, bro.
Oh my God, does everyone know this? Like if this room were filled with dudes, would all of them be nodding right now?
Yeah, because these bastards have been shoving their crap commercials in our faces for so long. It's
I guess
an
I just
affront.
missed what they were actually saying.
Spray your balls, brother.
Do they say that?
That's what it's almost at that level.
I'm so literal. I just assumed it was body spray.
You don't want that dick cheese. Spray your balls. It's like that
It's
kind
schmeg off.
Yeah, it's kind of that sort of like.
Or be gone, schmeg be gone.
Yeah. It's anyway. The point is the what's really awesome simultaneously. The awesome thing about being more in control, or knowing your advertising, you get to pick who you're going to represent. That's what's kind of cool about it, is that you don't have to like have something just shoved into the thing you're making. At least you have some knowledge that you've agreed to this thing, to representing this thing.
Yeah, I do have to say, podcast audiences I find are pretty cool with the fact that there are ads in the podcast, because I think they realize that, and I'm gonna. After I say this, I'm going to ask sort of what your model is on your podcast. But they realize that they're getting a podcast for free, and that this is how the podcast is staying afloat via these ads. So,
well, I did an episode recently where I put an ad in the. Usually, I do all the ads up front, but I put an ad somewhere in the midst of the show, and so some people complained. They're like, "Why'd you interrupt the show with an ad?" It's like, you idiot. Don't you understand the internet? You can leap forward.
Right.
It's like, takes 2 seconds. If it really bothers you, a 1.5-minute ad, skip ahead.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. What, you don't want to move your mouse? You don't want to like take the energy to move to the next place? I mean, it's really kind of like ridiculous that someone would get upset. I can understand like when there's no TiVo or no...
If you're in a movie theater or something, or if you're watching a musical.
That's a great way to put it. If you're watching Les Miserables...
Yeah, and you're
or the
sick
Book
of that
Mormon,
bitch Eponine.
Yeah.
I mean, she wasn't a bitch, but maybe a little bit.
I don't remember. Which one was it? Eponine was... Yeah, she was a bitch.
She was a bitch, yeah. Who was not?
Cosette. They're all kind of like
Cosette
precious.
was the daughter of the hooker... Who was something Fantine?
Yes.
That's right.
Now they're all very precious. Like in Les Miserables, like
French.
everyone's so goddamn precious. You just want to powder and comb all of them because they're so innocent and sweet. But yeah, I remember Eponine being particularly
The microphone is getting farther away from your face.
My apologies. I should have my phone turned off. That was rude.
There's a baby on your phone. Is a baby calling you?
No, that's not my baby. I got to take it off because as a joke, I put the baby on my phone because I Google searched ugly baby because I noticed like how people always have a baby on their phone when they have a baby. Like
Yeah,
you
you
can
have
always
to.
tell if someone has it's like the new wedding ring. Like
Yeah.
if you see if someone's got a baby.
Right.
on-
If you're sleeping with a guy and his phone rings and there's a baby.
Yeah. Yeah, yes.
Something
yes.
weird might be
There's
going
a problem.
on.
And I
Yeah.
did it as a joke because this kid simultaneously is so incredibly ugly. But the reason I'm really into this picture of this kid is because he's so bitter. And I don't understand
see
that.
this
Yeah,
bitter baby?
let me figure out a way to get it to come up. But it's hard for me to understand how a being that's only been on planet Earth for 2 months could already have the bitterness of like a racist Southern sheriff or some kind of like someone who should be running the Klan or something.
Yeah.
The look on the baby's face is one of such absolute disdain for all life that it seems to prove reincarnation. But let me see if I can find a picture of the baby for you.
Oh, okay. Now here's a question
Yes.
that's come up on this podcast before. What do
Yes.
you think is the cutest? Puppies, babies, or ducklings? It should be noted that you're looking up and you're deep in thought.
Yeah. Ducklings are out. I mean, they're adorable, but they're totally out. When they walk in line, it's great. The problem with babies is if you look at the gestalt of the
Whoa!
what do you
Whoa!
I wish I had a picture
play-
of the look that Allison just gave me.
Please take this in the spirit it's intended. Could you play the thing?
Hey, go fuck yourself.
No one says, and no one
you're-
shits on ducklings
You're a big
here.
fan of ducklings, huh?
Yes. What is not to be a fan of? Now, I will admit, there are some puppies that are cuter than ducklings. God, I don't want to have to go there. There's really nothing cuter than a duckling. Sometimes a puppy. Babies, I think
What's
they're
a duckling?
What's a duckling? It's a tiny duck. That's adorable.
It's like
they
a
waddle.
It's like a keychain. It's like a waddling keychain. I mean, they're cute, but it's not like a puppy. A puppy is probably one of the cutest things that not only exists on this planet, but in the entire universe.
I feel like a duckling could take on a puppy.
So let me. Okay,
I had pet ducks.
So
when
here's
I
I have a duckling and a puppy,
Okay.
right? And I say to you, I have to put one of these to sleep. Which one do you pick?
What kind of puppy?
You name the puppy. A
Oh,
stray,
really?
an old mangy old stray puppy, but
Oh,
still
fuck
a
that.
You're gonna.
So, okay, because I feel like there's probably certain kinds of puppies that aren't that cute, but this is the ultimate cute puppy.
Listen,
This
you
is the
don't.
cutest puppy
You
in the
don't.
world.
You're not gonna eat a puppy. But if you're at a nice restaurant, you might order duck.
I don't eat duck.
Well,
For this
but-
reason.
But I'm not saying that because something is, by the way,
I know
because
what
you
you're
eat
saying.
something doesn't make it non-cute. But I think that definitely puppies beat babies.
They do.
Babies
right?
are filthy.
Yeah, that's the weird thing, is that really babies should elicit the strongest cute, I want to protect that thing response in us. And yet, not all babies are, like, babies kind of grow into their cute adorableness.
They're terrible. They're stinky. They get diseases. They give you like that skin blistering disease. They're sick all the time.
What's the skin blistering disease?
They just, because they're always covered in their own piss and shit. They like, if you like touch them at the wrong time, then you can get,
Herpes?
yeah. Babies will give you, certain babies I'm sure will give you herpes. They're
Yeah.
filthy creatures, which is why it's so weird that some restaurants, you can't bring your little chihuahua in, but you can bring your screaming, squalling,
Right.
diaper-filled, poisonous offspring that you selfishly had because you weren't even thinking.
Are you going to have kids?
Yeah, totally.
Soon?
No, I mean, no, I don't. I would say that I don't know that that's in my future. I'm not opposed. I mean, as much as I apparently hate babies from that weird rant, I'm not opposed to it. But you know, it's kind of like what you mentioned about advertising when you're an editor. It's this kind of, you know, a lot of being comfortable in life is predicated on having someone in another room that you can't see doing things that you don't have to feel responsible for. And in the same way, when someone decides to have a baby, I don't know how many people put a lot of thought into the impact that has on the universe, not just environmentally, but on the subjective universe that you've created from bringing a being into the world, because that thing's going to die. Like having a child is damning a being to death. I think Jack Kerouac said that. When you have a kid, you've damned a thing. You've given something the death sentence. Anytime you have a baby, you've given it life, but you've also doomed it to some miserable coughing, choking, trauma, death.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility. So if you're going to bring something into this dimension,
it's like the opposite of making a vampire via True Blood. Now, I know that for you, vampire has kind of a different name.
There you go.
But you're making something mortal.
Yes, that's brilliant. Exactly. It's the way humans make vampires, I guess. Yeah, or their own version of it. Mortal vampires.
Right.
Because it is a form, a human is a form of vampire. It does convert the life energy of other things around it into its own life energy.
What would you do if you gave birth to a psychopath? Now, I like to believe, and I could be wrong, that there is something in nurture as opposed to nature that creates like a Dexter, let's say.
Yes.
But let's just say that and I like to think that because therefore I think, well, I know that I'll be a good parent,
sure,
and that won't happen. But what if you have, what if your 6-year-old starts pulling wings off flies or something? Or something that telegraphs destruction even greater than that. What do you do?
Well, I mean, I think that the you don't ignore it. It would be the first step, and quite often you find in like the stories of serial killers' parents that there was a level of like really effortful ignorance where there were all these signs and they just kept turning away to try to.
Right. So you think it's denial more than negligence?
I think you. Yeah, exactly. Denial is negligence.
Right.
But yeah. So I think that if you recognize that your child is displaying behavior traits that go along with what we know means they're probably going to be serial killers or like, whatever dark deviant thing is, then yeah, you start acknowledging it and you start doing everything you can to keep that shit from happening. I mean, I saw an interview with Dahmer's father once that was, the poor bastard is like still a little bit in denial, but the story was Dahmer, I don't know what age Dahmer started killing, but he was still living with his dad at the time, and he had a box up in his room that was locked, and his father told Dahmer, I'm going to open this. We have to open this box because I think you're looking at pornography in my house. And Dahmer's
and I want to crack at it.
Yeah, I want to see what you're jerking off to,
right,
killer. But he's like, he's like, can I have a little privacy, Dad? Come on, just let me have my box. And he's like, really starts freaking out, throwing a temper tantrum. His dad brings the box downstairs. He's like, I'm taking this to the garage, and I'm going to cut the lock off. And he's like, Dad, I hate you. And he freaks out and runs out, comes back like a few minutes later. He's like, listen, Dad, you can open the box. There's pornographic magazines in there, but something about their grandmothers at home at the time. Can we wait till Grandma goes out tomorrow to do it? Mm-hmm. And his dad's like, all right, here's your box. So what does Dahmer do? He goes upstairs, unlocks his box, takes the human head that was in the box out of the box to hide it, maybe replaces it with porn or whatever. But in that interaction, if his father had been a good father, he'd be like, no.
Right.
I don't care about your grandma. I'm opening this box because my spider sense is going off. And if this is porn, it's heavy porn.
And it smells.
And it stinks. Yeah. Have you been wrapping fish in your porn? And all those deaths would have been prevented if, he had taken action. But this is the behavior trait that is in so many other things, like the coach who was like humping the little boys in the shower. Sandusky. Everyone knew about Sandusky,
right,
but no one's doing anything about it. So it's whenever you have a monster, you'll find that the monster is sort of the flower growing off of a tree of denial, and that if people just stop denying things, then a monster can easily be taken care of.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, I love your podcast, and I find it so inspiring and positive, and I just moved, and the week surrounding it was really stressful, as a move will be, but just other stuff as well, and I was just kind of beginning to get, I don't know, angry or upset or bitter or just frustrated, maybe the 2 weeks leading up to it, and and kind of petty and just hanging on to like so dragged down and mired in just stupid petty shit that I wasn't seeing the big picture at all. And then just listening to your podcast, I'm trying to remember which episode it was. It may have been one of the Burt Kreischer episodes, or it may have been a Pete Holmes one. But it kind of reminded me that I can choose what to look at. Like I can kind of reframe things.
Yes.
And I don't need. Oh, I know. You know what it is. I was like festering over some kind of exchange with my parents, which really wasn't even so bad. It was just kind of loaded for me, and then I just was like, what am I doing? Still thinking about that? It doesn't matter. I've already assessed the situation. I don't need to pick apart at it, and I can just kind of choose what to focus on.
Right.
So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for listening. You know, I love thinking about those things, and I'm always fascinated by how much suffering we inflict on ourselves versus how much is actually being inflicted on us by the universe. It's like I was just thinking about this yesterday, how now this might seem a little weird and heady, but I think I can articulate it in a way that doesn't sound totally crazy. But when you're at the ocean and you watch waves, what you're seeing is an energy moving through water. The water is not what's moving. It's just being pushed by this energy, the force of the planet rolling through this massive amount of liquid. So clearly that energy does not stop there. It doesn't stop. It's just you don't see it anymore in the same way. And now maybe you'll see wind, or you'll see, the shift in nature that comes from energy moving through it. But in the same way, there's a subjective energy that rolls through society and manifests in the form of human activity, in the same way that waves are a manifestation of kinetic energy rolling through it. There's like a subjective energy that runs through people and defines your action. So in that way, the more you start realizing that you're very similar to a kind of living coral reef that has holes in it, and the holes are your sensory apparatus, your eyes and your ears, your mouth, your asshole, your pussy, or your cock. It's all the different gates that energy rolls into. And sometimes when this energy rolls into
So like you could pick up a bad vibe in your urethra.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Hell yeah, you can. Shit. That's like one of the worst vibes you can get.
I know.
But in that same way, like what ends up happening is, and this is maybe just a esoteric way of saying something that could be said more simply, but what ends up happening is you let in some of this external sensory experience into your subjective universe, or literally into your biocomputer, and then it begins to contaminate and infect the interior of your being. And so that's what produces the recurring thought patterns, which inevitably produce negative activity.
Right.
So that's how you begin to get influenced by these external waves washing against you, which is why there's this amazing Buddhist quote which goes, you can't stop the birds from flying around you, but you can keep them from making a nest in your hair. And so in that same way, there's always an inevitable...
Was that a big problem in the past?
Yeah. Yeah, it was terrible, man.
I know.
Birds were much faster and more clever back then, and
More
people
nimble
had,
with their nests.
and people had much more hair back then.
Don't
So-
move. You got a nest in your hair.
Afros. Everyone had just afros with annoying birds living in them. And someone finally was like, shit, we don't have to let them go into our
Right. We
afros.
can't. Why are we trying to stop them from flying?
Yeah.
Let's just focus on the nest that's in our hair.
That's it. And so that I get fixated on that stuff, and I fail miserably at it all the time because I'm very reactive, and
Well, yeah, that I was wondering. Well, wait. I have to go back to something first, though. But remind me that I was wondering. Now, remind me that I was wondering, given this sort of inspirationalness, which is not a word of your podcast. I'm wondering, like, what your actual day-to-day mood is. So I want to ask that. But first, I want to go back to when you said this. You said this whole thing might just be an esoteric way of saying something that could be said in a much more simple way. It made me think of something which I haven't thought about in a long time, but I used to think about all the time, which is, have you ever done that thing where you go on this like very elaborate, deep thought pattern and you come to a realization that feels like the fruit of like a lot of mental energy, and then you're like, oh wait, did everyone else already know this, and that's what that dumb cliche was referring to? Do you ever have that? Like, I'll be like, wait, there's already a common sense cliche that encapsulates the whole thing. This giant thing I just realized, and maybe everyone else already knew that.
Yes.
It's like a weird kind of deja. It's on the order of deja vu, but it's not deja vu. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but I remember like years and years ago telling a professor of mine, talking about that experience, and he was saying that David Foster Wallace, are you familiar with?
Yes.
He's a writer who committed suicide, but he was saying that David Foster Wallace had talked about that in maybe Infinite Jest. I'm not sure which novel, but
well, there's a lot of cool ways that people have come up with for talking about that, which is basically there's a term, and I believe it's called katsu, and what that means is a fleeting glimpse at enlightenment. So, in other words, you have these like, right, epiphanies. And so they say, okay, well, that's kind of just like a little flicker of what enlightenment is. And enlightenment is another foggy word, but the idea is like you are a state of pure awareness, or another way to put it is you are already perfect, because there's no time. Time's a function of our nervous systems putting things in a kind of linear way. But the moment your nervous system shuts down, time ceases to exist, and you merge into the infinite. And there's a lot of other there's a lot of other ways to put that. But one notion that I really like and is that people kind of look at evolution or the force of evolution as being propelled from the back, kind of like a boat with an engine on it or something. Like something the way time works is we're sort of rolling from the back into the future. But there's another cool way that this has been described, and Terence McKenna talks about it in his own way, and this Jesuit named Teilhard de Chardin talks about it in another way, which is that there's a point in the future where maximum complexity will perfectly coincide with maximum harmony, and that it is a magnetic force that's pulling us into it. And that's what the force of evolution is seeing things go from a simplified state to a super complex, harmonious state, and we're in the midst of being drawn into this thing. So these epiphanies that you have are actually connections with your perfected state of being transcendent to time. And so when you realize there's no time, and if you buy the idea that there's some ultimate transcendent perfected state that we're just a sort of rudimentary or sort of a appendage of that's got a bit of amnesia, then you can begin to open yourself up to realize your true identity, which is what enlightenment really is I think enlightenment can be compared to a child who got too caught up in Grand Theft Auto and suddenly is like, oh, this is just a game. I'm not really running around a city jumping into cars. I'm actually in a completely different dimension. I got very absorbed into this thing. So anyway.
That thing being life. The life that, as we define it. Yeah.
Our life and our identity and our ego
right.
and everything that you consider you are has been compared by Ram Dass to a fancy outfit that you wear. So people have tail feathers, like you go on a date and you're like, you really will throw out tail feathers, depending on where you're at with like the dating scene or meeting people. As you get more wisdom, you're always like, fuck it, I'm just going to be exactly myself to try to avoid 2 years of pseudo happiness followed by like a crash into hell when you're like, you're not the person I met. No, I wasn't the person you met. I was throwing up tail feathers to try to seduce you.
Right.
Which is what so many people do. But those tail feathers are your ego, or the things you put out into the world to try to convince people of what you are.
Your mask is another way of putting it, right?
That's it. Bingo. Your mask. And one of my favorite Ram Dass quotes is, we're God in drag, is what he says. We're God doing this masquerade, this costume party where we've really become attached to the masks that we're wearing. And, but that's certainly not who you are. That's just a temporary sort of combination of elementary particles meeting a sort of whatever the paradigm you happen to incarnate it into, congealing together to form you as a person, and from that you decide what to wear and how to walk and how to drive and all that stuff. But if you look at all of time and space, it really is just a temporary pixel in the grand scheme of things, and you are...
Now, is that liberating or depressing? And also, you know who's into Ram Dass?
Who?
Biff Naked. Do you remember who that is?
No.
She was this, like, I'm having trouble remembering myself, like flash in the pan, tough gal, like Pink before Pink, but maybe concurrent with Pink.
Sure.
And I remember I wrote an article about her. That's why she suddenly came to mind. And I know that she had some Ram Dass quotes in her liner notes, and she also had 2 Maltese puppies. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other thing, so all of this, liberating or depressing or both?
When I first started reading about this shit many years ago, I found it to be beyond depressing.
What was your introduction to all this shit?
When I was a kid, my mom was into this stuff, and I found this...
Like Buddhism? Is that...
No, it started off with this book called Raja Yoga by Yogi Ramacharaka, who turned out to be a fraud. Like, it was just a name that an English dude made up to seem like a Hindu, like, yogi.
Right.
But the book still contained within it, you know, the basics of yoga, the teaching that a lot of people don't know, which is that yoga means to yolk or to unify in the way that you put it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that they also don't know there's like a lot of different schools of yoga. There's not just
There's like Crunch Gym.
Right. Well, there's the physical yoga, hatha yoga, but then there's so many other yogas that are mental, or yogas that are, all of the yogas are basically the acknowledgement that people have different personality types, and they're methods that you can use to try to connect to the greater truth, however you want to call it. And some methods are theistic, some methods are atheistic, but all of them are designed to sort of get you outside your temporary ego or personality structure to merge with the greater part of the universe that you obviously are if you exist in the universe. So this book was the first time I'd ever come across the idea, which is a great, amazing thing when you've never heard it before, which is that the difference between the observer and the observed. Mm-hmm. You know, so like when people refer to themselves, they might say, "I'm hungry," and so, but when you're hungry, you think, "Okay, am I hungry? What's hungry? Is it me that's hungry?" Because there's an awareness, and then there's the hunger, or the observer and the observed. This is called they call it the Atman, which is like the thing watching that you can't see. Kind of like right now, if you try to look at your own face, you can't do it without a mirror. In the same way, there's the observer, which is aware of all the different things swirling through your mind, all your desires, all your guilt. Anything is always just being observed by this thing. And so that's the beginning, or it was at least the beginning for me, of like, holy fucking shit, I'm not my thoughts? What am I? How can I be a thing I observe? You know, what is that? Now, it creates a state of temporary dualism, this mode of thinking, which eventually gets...
Are you, okay, just to make sure I understand, are you saying that what you think you are feeling, observing, feeling twice, you're feeling a lot of it, and then you're also observing it, and you're thinking it, is actually something outside kind of looking in and assessing the situation, like, and you think you are that, but it's not that? Like
yeah,
that,
that's definitely a way to put it. And the outside in thing is like, I think they would say, well, there really is no outside or inside. There's just one thing.
Well, who is you then?
What's that?
Who is you? Where are you? Who is you?
Well, that's where we get into like the wonderful all the wonderful different like beautiful puzzles that the different forms of meditation offer us, because there's a lot of... So
that's kind of the question in that observer-observed thing.
Who am I?
Right.
What am I? What is this thing? Am I just some like meat thing? Am I just some meat thing that wants to eat and fuck and sleep and make money? Is that all I am? Is that it? Is that all this is? Am I a robot? That's when you get into like behaviorism, B.F. Skinner, the idea that like everything's... Yeah, that motherfucker. Everything's predetermined. There's no autonomy. You're just a sort of a molecular machine rolling towards death. It's perceiving itself as making free decisions, but actually you're just perfectly reacting to your environment based on genetic predispositions. It's a
Right.
really dark, nihilistic way of looking at things, and it's the way scientists rationalize cutting monkeys' heads open and spraying PERT plus in their brain or whatever.
Or axe on their balls.
Yeah, exactly. But the more you sort of analyze the you get into this mode of thinking, the more you will begin to experience a type of freedom from your initial reactions to mood states, which is really fantastic to recognize that just because you're angry inside doesn't mean that you have to act angry, or just because you're
Right. Feelings are not facts.
Yes.
That's another way of saying it.
That's it.
But a more prosaic
It's a
way.
There's a lot of different ways of saying the exact same thing, but many.
And I struggle with that, though.
Me
I
too.
struggle with that. I have a lot of, and I talk about that on this podcast, but I have a lot of trouble. My first reaction to a feeling is to question it and to suppress it and to not act on it, which then creates this almost cognitive dissonance is not the right word, but discomfort, because I can't actually hide it from someone else. Like, I'm very bad at that. People can tell what's
Sure.
going on with me by just looking at me. I don't have much of a poker face, but I'm trying not to express it because I don't want to be an asshole or a jerk, or I just don't know. I don't know if I'm in the wrong, or
Yeah.
and then it's just like, then I'm just kind of in hell while I'm trying to figure out how to deal with this thing I'm feeling.
Yes, right. And that dissonance, I think it is cognitive dissonance. And I think that when you do that, not as a form of retreat or as a form of cowardice or a form of pseudo-pacifism, but when you recognize the anger and you do it as a form of discipline, we're like, okay, I'm fucking pissed right now at this person, but I know that there's unless you're in danger, unless the person's coming at you to attack you, in which case anger is a wonderful thing because
Yeah.
it'll give you adrenaline and help you fight back. Generally, you can always make some time before you have to react to that anger, because you might need to react to the anger. It might help
Well,
you.
and that's the flip side, is that
Yeah.
when I should react to it, I'm delayed.
Pima Chodron calls it the pause, and it's really cool. Which is like it's one of the most simple modes or means of meditating in your life or through your actions that I've ever seen. It's very beautiful, and what it is so we're all addicted to something. We all have some addictive. Well, not all of us, but
Heroin for me.
heroin. I'm into PCP.
Yeah.
But we're all hooked on something. Actually, I'm hooked on the internet. So.
Me too. Twitter.
So this is, I think, one of the probably one of the most common addictions existing in our society today. So Pima Chodron recommends that what you do is, when you have this impulse to check your email, or you have this impulse to check your Twitter, your impulse to check CNN or Drudge Report or Reddit or whatever you're into, don't stop doing it. But just next time you have the impulse, wait. Like 5 deep breaths. So next time you want to do that, just sit down and breathe 5 deep times. And then go do it if you still want to do it. But what this does is it creates a bit of, it throws your addictive pattern off enough. And if you throw a pattern off enough, then it can actually create an effect where the whole thing falls apart.
Right.
It's not going to fall apart all at once. I mean, everyone wants to be goddamn enlightened right away, or perfect right away, or phony holy, as Ram Dass calls it, which is why it's not about that. It's like, it's more about recognizing, like, oh man, I fucking jerk off to gross porn. I like to play video games. I probably smoke pot too much, and I can be messy if I don't watch myself. And instead of recognizing that stuff and being like, okay, I'm celibate now, I'm stopping smoking pot, I'm going to clean constantly, I'm going to be a greatest person on earth. Now you're in this false state of like flexing. You're flexing. You're like, oh, I'm this thing now. I'm this thing now. I'm this thing now. Even though the entire momentum of my life has made me a completely different thing.
Right.
I'm this whole new thing. This is what
that's
I
like
am.
people who find religion.
Yes, that's right. It's a form of it's a version of
It's like subverting what you don't like about yourself and just getting new clothes.
Yes. And it won't work, though. The thing is, it's not going to fucking work. You're going to hold this posture or this uncomfortable stance for a day, a month, maybe even two or 3 years. But if you haven't caused a shift in the internal structure of your psyche, then that stance is inevitably going to fall apart and you're going to be right back where you started, which is fine because we've got a long time. We are everything, and we've been here for infinity. So there's plenty of time to go through this series of shifts and changes and births and deaths that make up human life and everything. You don't have to be in a big fucking rush. Everyone's in a rush.
I'm really impatient.
Me too.
With myself and with everything.
It's an uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you're addicted to it. You know, people get addicted to impatience. It's a great drug. I mean, have you ever gotten addicted to cigarettes?
Yeah.
So being addicted to cigarettes is great because it teaches you all the other addictions. Because when you've been hooked on cigarettes, you know the feeling of wanting a cigarette. It's like a weird, like, strange, itchy feeling, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way, like, if you imagine, like, what you would be like if you were patient. In other words, if you could just sit down and, like, breathe and just be completely in the moment for a while and not be in a rush, you might find that there's a lot of you that doesn't want to be like that, that considers that as like, fuck that, that's boring. That doesn't sound fun at all. I don't want to be like that. You know, so it's almost like you're choosing to be impatient because it satisfies an itch inside of you. You know, you're making this
It's a distraction in a way as well.
It's a distraction. Yeah, it's a distraction, and it's it's very funny, people who are always in a hurry because they're never like, what are you really accomplishing?
Yes.
Have you ever seen like a hamster running around a habit trail and it gets on the wheel and it runs and then it goes and digs and then it like gathers stuff and it gets on the habit trail and runs? I know so many people like that, and they really take it seriously, you know, and they will actually put human contact and intimacy underneath accomplishing tasks. Like, to them, the priority is getting shit done and not connecting with people. And it's such a sad, cardboard way to live, where you're, like, just always running around at the cost of all human intimacy.
See, I think I have a large dose of that now that I think about it. And it's two things, though. It's one, it's feeling like I don't have enough time to get the things done that I need to do. But it is also probably wanting to avoid some intimacy. Like, I don't like talking on the phone. It makes me uncomfortable. Not always. There's exceptions. But I'm like, Gary, I'm fine with talking on the phone with you. But Gary knows that I don't like talking on the phone, and so he tries to avoid the phone with me. But I'm just throwing it out there. Fine with the phone. You're welcome. But... yeah, so but I think people that are always rushing around, I've seen people who almost, it's like on purpose they run late so that they can always be rushing.
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
I mean, what a goddamn rush it is to be late for a flight. I mean, it's a great, you get hooked on the adrenaline. Just your adrenal glands are going to blast you with like some sweet neurochemicals that are going to induce a kind of like speed state.
Yeah.
These people are usually also into cocaine. Like, they're the ones who are, they have the tendency to get addicted to cocaine because it like produces that same exhilaration that comes from being on the go.
Right.
You know, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to get high. There's nothing wrong with wanting to get intoxicated. Intoxication is a delightful state of being. It's just the question you have to ask yourself is there a better intoxication than this? Is there a better feeling that I could have? See,
the question I would ask is, what am I trying to escape? Is that not a germane question?
No, I think that's a fantastic question to ask yourself. I mean, sure, but
it leads you back. It leads ultimately to thinking you should just be sober, probably.
Oh, being sober.
Well, I'm saying, like, if the question you're asked, like, I want to get high, I want to be in an altered state.
Yeah.
Why? What is it I'm trying to avoid? Is what I would ask myself.
Well, there's different means of using intoxicants, and one of the ways of using intoxicants is certainly an escape mechanism. It's like an avoidance mechanism, depending on the drug you're using. You know, if you're into like Oxy or you're into any of the narcotics, you're definitely in a mode of escaping. The way that you're interfering with the way that you're interfacing with reality, you know. But then there's other drugs psilocybin, LSD, mushrooms, apparently ayahuasca, which I've never done.
I've never even heard of that.
Ibogaine,
Or
dimethyltryptamine,
now
which
you're
is
making
in.
them up. What are
no,
they?
I'm not. These are all the main. These are all the psychedelic chemicals that.
What were the last three though?
Ibogaine, ayahuasca, and DMT. But DMT is.
Sounds like Pig Latin.
I know, it's cool
Not really.
names. They're awesome names anyway.
Are
but
those natural, or is that a chemical that's someone
everything?
made?
Ibogaine is natural, and ayahuasca is a combination of what's called an MAO inhibitor, and I think I believe it's a bark and a root, I believe.
Okay,
and
so
one
it's a plant thing.
It's a plant. It's all plant stuff. So all those things, like if you even eating marijuana, if you like eat a nice healthy dose of marijuana, try to escape your problems. Like sit down and really try to escape your problems, because if there's things you've been ignoring, generally they're going to come screaming through your consciousness like the Grim Reaper, just howling at you like, why won't you pay your bills, clean your house, get in shape, you don't have to be sick. There's a spanking element involved in psychedelics where they will discipline you if you haven't been staying on the level. But there's no perfect drug, and continued use of it can start off as a kind of self-exploration, and you can end up going back and back and back and back to the experience to try to avoid having real action in your life. So yeah, that's an escape mechanism. Or as Alan Watts says, once you get the message, hang up the phone.
I've spent not regarding substances, although a little bit, but I feel like I've just spent my whole life just holding the phone still, being like, hello? Hello? Can you say that again? Hello? Like, I never get the message. Or rarely.
Well, you do. I mean,
It just takes a while.
Part of the joy of this whole thing is that it may be that you have gotten the message, but it also may be that you don't feel like responding to it because you're enjoying your life right now. With all the stress and anxiety and hurry and the way you might be beating yourself up over this or that, at the root of who you are, you might find that you're really enjoying this incarnation and that you don't really feel like, necessarily like going this way or that way to try to change things. And that's where it gets fucking crazy, because that is enlightenment. That's the idea. The idea isn't like everyone wants to change. I'm going to change. I'm going to lose weight, gain weight. I'm going to become a better person. I'm going to memorize poetry and learn another language and all this nonsense, when it's like the real thing is just to be
just to be
in this moment. Because what an incredible moment it is. It's the most insane thing ever. We're at the very crest of the wave of time. We are composed of DNA that stretches back at least 200,000 years, that trails its way all the way through time, through the Middle Ages, through every single moment in human history. Your DNA is connected like a crazy snake going all the way back through time, punctuated by orgasm after orgasm after orgasm, which has led you to this moment. It's fucking incredible, man. It's an incredible thing. And it's, rather than beating yourself up and being this kind of drill sergeant that's marching around your head like some Full Metal Jacket barracks or platoon, always like you're either too busy or you're not busy enough. You're either, you know what I mean? You're either spending too much time with a boyfriend or girlfriend, or you've become a cold alien thing. You're always beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, just kind of let what's happening happen, and then that can result in novelty, if nothing else.
Well, so something that happened to me recently, and I think it's not a drill sergeant in my head, but it might be Miss Hannigan from Annie.
Oh, yes,
she's a bitch,
yes. Make these floors shine.
That's a real thing. Yeah. I do love Carol Burnett, but I didn't like that. I saw Annie when I was too young, and not too young. I mean, I was probably the right age, but I didn't find her. I just thought she was mean in that role,
She was.
Yeah, that was the point. Well, so anyway, okay, so I just moved in with my boyfriend.
Yes.
And the very first night, it was like this hellacious, really long move, and I was stressed, and there was just a lot going on in my head. There were other things I was worried about, and in addition to everything being in boxes everywhere, and my old apartment, like stuff still is, or at the time was still there, so I wasn't fully moved out, and I just in no way was I like, oh good, I'm in the new place. Like the first night, I was so tired, so physically tired from because we had to carry a lot of stuff up steps.
Yes.
Anyway, though, but I felt like it's the first night in the new place. I should want to be intimate.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's, like, I feel like almost like a wedding, not like
Christen
really like
the
a
new place.
Yeah, sort of. I wasn't thinking that.
We've done it, honey. It's because in every movie, when the couple moves into the new place, they always fuck on the floor around the boxes.
Yeah. We were just in a bed, but I felt like I should want to do that, but it was not at all on the list of things I wanted to do. Like I was so just not in that place at all. No. But I sort of made myself kind of mess around a little because to me it was like, if I don't, what does that mean? Maybe it means there's a problem here. Like that was my thought pattern, even though I don't think there is. And then the next day I was thinking about it and I felt just angry. Like the feeling was I wanted to just like throw something across the room. I felt so angry at what had happened, and even though
why were you angry? You felt angry because you did or because you didn't?
Because I did and I didn't want to.
Okay.
And I realized I have to just for lack of a better word, sort of honor what I'm feeling, because if I don't, then I'll be angry. And I'm not actually mad at him, not on any intellectual level. He in no way did he actually violate me. And now I
he manipulated you or something. Like he wanted to have sex and you didn't want to have sex. It's a little classic thing. We just moved in. I want to have sex. You don't feel like it, but you don't want to be rude because it's some special night, theoretically. And every movie that you've ever seen has imprinted your brain with the idea that a happy couple fucks when they move into a place. It's in every movie. If a couple moves into a place,
if you don't, then what does that mean? That's what I was like. If
it means that you're tired.
Yes, but I, for some reason, I guess this is what I'm saying. He wasn't pressuring me at all. I was pressuring me, and that's what I was mad about. I just felt like really just agitated and just like it was such a raw emotion that I couldn't even figure it out. I was just like, that's how I felt. Just, and then he was like, could tell something was bothering me, even though I didn't think it was that he was picking up on. I thought it was other stuff. And then we had a long talk about it, and he was, so understanding and really and kind of saying that if I don't tell him what's going on, in a way that's kind of disrespecting him, because that's acting like all he cares about is having sex as opposed to caring about what I'm actually thinking or feeling. So now I feel much better about it, and we also talked about if I'm so tired that I don't feel like it, that doesn't really necessarily mean anything other than I'm tired. But that whole thing is I brought that up because it related to something, which is like having a strong feeling and just not knowing what the hell to do with it.
Yeah. This is on one level of reality, which is especially when you're in the mind level. Whoa, stuff gets so fucking complex, man. It's amazing. It's amazing because sex is really the most visceral, non-thinking act that there is.
But not when I have it.
What's that?
Not when I have it.
I know. I'm the same way. I'll totally get in my head when I'm having sex. And that is that's where you realize balance is so important, because people like us, I think we're probably similar in a lot of ways. We spend a lot of time analyzing things in our head.
Yes.
And so which is really interesting because
it's a way to stay safe, I think. It's a compulsion to analyze.
The Egyptians apparently used to think that the thinking was done in the heart, that the brain was in the heart. And that's really cool when you consider that, because that means that they were going more off of this deeper...
Yeah, like a gut intellect.
A gut intellect instead of this And also a lot of people were theorized that human brains have been developing in a surprisingly fast way, and that the neocortex is a relatively new thing and is even now still growing. And so the crazy, endless, repetitive thoughts that loop around most humans' brains are just a result of a rapidly expanding neocortex. It's like something that's relatively new. But anyway, so from, beginning a spiritual practice or a discipline, the idea is to instead of always getting pulled into the eddies that happen in your thoughts, you begin to gain some autonomy. And if you want to move down into your body, you can do that. Instead of just being up in your head, you can control where your focus goes. This is coming from me, P.S., highly theoretical. I've read it, have not experienced it, but I have experienced a little bit of relief from being completely caught up in my thoughts. But I certainly... What's that?
How have you?
It requires daily meditation, It's like anything else, like working out, doing low carb. It's like any other thing. You've got to start, meditating every day. And then at least, and it's so frustrating, these sons of bitches. Like, I know some people who work for Ram Dass's foundation, and they're some of the most enlightened beings I've ever come across. And they are hilarious because you'll ask them a question, and they'll be like, I don't know. And then they'll say, don't meditate. Like, you're like, what? What are you talking about?
Now you tell me?
Yeah. No, don't meditate. It's so funny the way they are, but their guru, Maharaji, as they call him, or Neem Karoli Baba, he was like, he kind of thought it was funny that all these people were coming over from the West and meditating, and he would say, oh, have you been meditating? Oh, you've been meditating. Wow. Like talking to kids.
In a condescending way?
I made it sound condescending, but it was more of like, the thing is so much bigger than even meditation.
Right.
That the moment you start doing this thing that I do, because you begin to apply the same ideas you've learned about success in society or in the marketplace to success in spirituality. So you're like, I'm going to meditate hard today.
Yeah. Like, I used to meditate in 10 minutes. I think I can do it in 5.
Yes.
Like that.
That's it. So now you start applying those same crazy accomplishment ideas to something which is not anything. It's beyond conceptualization, and it's delightful in that it's beyond conceptualization, because that makes it supreme novelty, But it's again, it's I think, regardless of what any motherfucker says, I do think there's something to be said for a disciplined spiritual practice if you can do it every day, meditating.
And you do that? Do you do it in the morning?
I do it in the morning, and when I'm really being good at night, too. Morning and night, I chant. But I haven't done it for like 5 days.
Why?
I don't know. I ordered all this marijuana and just started eating edibles and getting really high every day, and now it's like, what are you doing? Like, what? Like, it's such an easy thing to get pulled away from the discipline itself, But I did start chanting again today, but that's always my cycle. My cycle is always one of gaining some kind of temporary discipline and really getting my shit together and getting focused, and then the whole thing sort of combusts the moment I run into something that gratifies my senses in an extreme way, whether it's a girlfriend, whether it's a drug, a video game, whatever. I'll always find myself shipwrecked on some island, trying to pretend that the island I'm shipwrecked on is paradise. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is great. No, this is what life's all about. It's getting high and playing Borderlands 2. Whoa, this is great. But really, no, this is just a temporary distraction. But you must allow yourself those moments. If you're going to fucking do it, if you're going to have a boyfriend and be in a relationship, if you're going to have a girlfriend and be in a relationship, if you're going to play video games, if you're going to shoot heroin, if you're going to do whatever the sense gratification is, during the state of doing it, allow yourself to be purely in it.
Yeah.
At least do that if you can. Because if you're going to spend if you've created this idea of reality where here's where I'm good and here's where I'm bad. Now I'm a good person. Now I'm a bad person. Now I'm a good person. You've created this terrible, you've basically segmented yourself up into this kind of Scarlet Letter style Nathaniel Hawthorne centipede where certain segments of your life are great and certain segments are bad.
Right.
And the idea is get rid of those fucking
Today
segments.
was a really Hester day.
What's that?
Today was a really Hester Prynne day.
Hester Day.
Oh, Hester Day. What'd you do Hester Day?
Hester Day.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. People are living a lot of Hester days because, you know what I mean? They're guilty about the past. That's when you're guilty about the past. You're thinking about Hester Day.
Right.
And when you're worried about the future, I don't know what that is. But the idea is it's like you're not going to be perfect all the time. And if you're going to like, don't pretend that you are. Oh, there's nothing worse than someone prancing around like they're some goddamn saint. And it's like, I know that you're not. I know you're not like that. You just have to be very honest with yourself and with everyone around you.
Now, you used to go out with Nathasha Leggero.
Yes, I did.
For how many years?
I think it was about 5 years.
Did you guys sit around and talk about deep stuff all the time?
Yeah, we did. She's really smart. So we would, we would have very deep philosophical conversations a bunch. Yeah, it was great.
How come you guys broke up, if I may ask?
Well, I was like, at the time, I was completely living off of her. Like, she was paying for everything. I mean, I was making some money, but I didn't have we had that podcast, but it hadn't like really reached a successful place. And I would get like writing jobs and stuff, and I would go on the road and do stand-up, but I was definitely not making enough money to pull my own weight in that relationship, and which I think is a manageable thing if you're actually going for it. You know, like if you're not making a lot of money and you're in a relationship and someone's making more, but you're making active efforts to try to achieve a state of balancing out the relationship financially, then that's great. And you should support a person who's obviously working their ass off to try to like help, you know, grow crops in whatever life farm that you're making. But I got lazy and was like playing like video games all the time and was just kind of taking her for granted, and not kind of. I was taking her for granted, and like it put such a strain on the relationship that it just imploded, and we broke up when we should have. Like, that's not a good relationship. It's an enabling, kind of inadvertently enabling. I mean, I would love to have another mythology about it and be like, she got super successful and I wasn't good enough for her anymore. But that's just not it at all. She's like a very sweet, generous person. And I like, at the time, I don't think that I was like really, I think that I didn't have the discipline that's necessary to maintain a relationship at the 5-year mark, because that's pretty much, you're either going to like get married and be a man and fucking take care of shit, or you're going to, you know, be a man child and just sort of piddle around until the thing collapses, which is what I did. And because of that, it taught me a lot about.
Did you sabotage it?
Yeah, I definitely, I don't know if if I actively sabotaged it, but I mean, I think that it was kind of like, it's fun to believe that, it's fun to believe that there aren't, when I say this, it makes me sound like a disciplining parent, but there are consequences for actions in this world. And I think the older you get, the more clear those consequences become. And you don't want to accept that, but it's a fantastic lesson. Tragedy and catastrophe is one of the first manifestations of the guru in a disembodied state, where the force of the universe comes to you and says, look, it's real, man.
Right.
Like, look, this is,
there's a meaning to crisis.
You lose stuff. Like, you lose a life. Like, you lose a life if you don't focus and work hard and really try to interface with the universe in a passionate way. You will lose everything around you. And that was like my first real experience with that level of it. And it was one of the greatest lessons ever. And like since then I like buckled down and started like focusing and working hard, and started my own podcast and really started taking my comedy seriously. And you know, sadly, because of that tragedy, it like propelled me into a place of success. But it sucks the way I got there was from disaster, you know? I feel bad about that.
Are you guys friends now?
No, I fucking hate her. No, we're friends. I mean, we're definitely friends. Like, as friendly as you can be when you've like, you know. I think, I mean, I certainly hope that after a certain amount of time passes, like, we'll be able to be like authentic friends again, because she's fucking cool and she's so fun to like hang out with. But I think it takes time. You know, we did a podcast together fairly soon after breaking up, and I made a point in the beginning of this kind of naive thing where I was like, you can be friends with your exes, you don't have to be their enemies anymore, and that was a premature thing to say, because it really is a tricky thing once you've lived with someone and been intimate with someone for a long time. It really is a tricky thing to sort of...
It's like you have to let the wound heal.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to, I don't know, slip back, or even if that's not on the table, it's so easy to just push each other's buttons or for things to just go awry, I think. And actually, I heard that episode, and it was just so interesting to hear the way you guys were not quite communicating on the same level, if that makes sense, in certain areas, like where someone would get defensive and be like, but that's not what I meant. And I could hear why someone was hearing it a certain way, and I could also hear how, actually, it was like I could hear why she thought you were saying a certain something or being judgmental, but I could also hear how you really meant it. And
it's the worst, isn't it? It's like, this is why I look forward to what I think is right around the corner, which is a neurological interface that will allow two people, instead of having to articulate their experience of the universe through language or the clicks and grunts that come out of the end of your feeding tube, which is such a primitive way to describe life, some neurological, technologically enhanced interface that allows us to feel what the other person is feeling.
And very science fiction.
Oh, but it's coming. It's going to happen. And the moment that happens, I think it's going to, human relationships are going to become so much more loving, because we get so caught up in the symbols that we use to describe the way we feel that we actually lose track of the way we feel.
Well, yeah, you have said, and I actually jotted this down, you said that what you say is less important than what you're feeling when you say it.
It's what's between the lines. And you know, man, okay, comedians will start jabbing at each other for fun. Starts off as for authentic fun.
Right.
But all of a sudden someone will say just the right thing that gets under your skin. And now you feel that burst of anger. And you'll do another joke back. But you know underneath it, it's no longer affable. You know underneath it, now you've got your claws out.
Right.
And that will cause the person to react in a completely different way than if your claws aren't out. And so... in the same light, if you're on ecstasy, for example, and you're talking to people, or depending on how high you are, as long as you're not grinding your teeth, your eyes aren't rolling back in your head, there's a connection that happens because you're feeling this crazy state of like love, and people respond to love. I've just read this great quote: If you truly love something, it will tell you all its secrets. And it's so true. Like, if you really love, if you can, like, feel love, it doesn't matter what you're saying, because behind it is just this sense of, like, wanting connection and, like, true affection for a person. So it seems that there's a distinct advantage to somehow bringing yourself into that kind of emotional state as much as possible.
But and this is like a very I'm taking this in a very cynical or dark direction, but do you think that there are people who can sort of fake that, for lack of a better word? And let me explain what I mean. There are certain people that you'll meet where you're just like, oh my God, I just feel better being near them. When they say my name and smile, they make eye contact, and I just feel
Bert Kreischer.
special. Yeah, okay, he's one. Well, hang on. Let's decide if he's one or not. I just feel better being around him. And these, like, in the high school boy form, every girl likes that guy, or in high school, that is. You know, these people can be so seductive because you're just like, whatever it is that you are peddling, like, I want to be around it. And you think that you're as special to them as, I sound bitter saying this, but it's actually not coming from any bitter place. You think you're as special to them as they suddenly are to you. And then you realize, no, they make everyone feel this way. They are just like, they're like babies in adult form. And they can actually be very emotionally irresponsible.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, you get attached to love.
Yeah.
But is it their fault? I mean,
well, right. No, not really. But I guess, what am I saying? Like, you'll tell them all your secrets, but I don't think they really love you in that way.
You know, I know what you mean, and you know, I actually heard a description of Stanley Kubrick, and they said that he would develop this intimate relationship with the people in his movies, and the whole time he was just manipulating them to try to get what he wanted out of them, and then the moment the movie was done, he never talked to them again.
Right.
And so, yeah, that sucks. That's like that is a manipulation.
But it might not even be that calculated. Like, haven't you ever met a woman where you thought, well, it goes the other way gender wise, but perhaps you've met a woman and you thought something really special was starting.
Yes.
And then you realize, no, I totally misread that situation. Have you had that happen to you? And what do you think was going on in that dynamic where you misread it?
Well, I was getting attached. I mean, I was trying to create an attachment mechanism to lock down someone. Like, someone was making me feel great. It's like, and I wanted to, like, automatically start building a fucking net around the thing that was making me feel great.
And do you feel like she was leading you on, or do you feel like you misread it?
I think if she was inducing in me a really great feeling about myself, I don't think leading me on is the right word for it.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, what's that fucking Neil Young song? Love is a rose, but you better not pick it. It only grows when it's on the vine. Handful of thorns and you know you've missed it. Lose your love when you say the word mine. It's great. And it's like, but we have this, you know, love is such a wonderful feeling that because we've been taught to live in a world where there are limited resources, we apply that same idea to love. And so we're like, we want to put it in a cupboard, put a barbed wire fence around it, domesticate it, try to reproduce it if we can, but mainly we want to control and manage it. And that attitude is the opposite of what it is. Yeah. Because it's a wild thing. It's fucking wild. It's a wild, beautiful thing that will not be tamed. And the trying to tame it is just similar to dashing yourself on rocks. It just doesn't work. But getting to that state of non-attachment when you're in the presence of it is fucking hard, man. Yeah. You know? I mean, I remember years ago thinking, but if I'm feeling it, how could they not be feeling it? Like, I assumed that there was something immutable about feeling. And once I realized many years later, no, it's sort of like if two people go to a restaurant, one person could like the spaghetti and the other one could think this is not good. Yeah. And like, or you could look at a color and one person likes that color and another one doesn't. There's nothing about that reality that is necessarily going to be shared. The people are not going to be perceiving that, because that wonderful experience for you, it might be, you know, based on what you're bringing to it, like this was exactly what you were looking for, but that might not have the same meaning to them. And once I realized that, like, that was a very liberating realization that, oh, it's not, it's just that's just how people are. Like, you can be feeling something and the other one might not be. Hopefully they're not lying to you about what you're, you know, hopefully you guys are communicating, and that's where you have to communicate. And I brought that up because you were talking about when we get to the state where you could just feel what someone else is feeling.
We might all be walking around being like, that's what you were feeling.
Well, think of the terrible responsibility that you've placed on a person if you have made them responsible for your experience of love.
Yeah.
You've basically turned that person into God. It's not a fair place to be. But when you're feeling love, I think it may be more in the same way that, like, when you're in a dark room, your eyes will dilate to take in more light. I think some people can produce a state of openness inside of you. They can, or they call the heart chakra. They can start opening up that place inside of you. And so when that's happening, it's not that they may have induced it initially, but it's important to realize that this is something that's inside of you all the time. And this is where you get into, like, the idea in Bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of love, which is the idea that everything's God. You're God. I'm God. This table is God. This studio is a manifestation of God. The whole thing is this manifestation of this supreme perfection that is very, very, very in love with you. And the moment you start realizing that, you begin to shift your attachment from individual portions of the creation to the creation as a whole, and that creates this kind of state of, like, bliss, where you're no longer trying to turn someone into the lever that the mouse pushes to make the crack come out, because that sucks. Nobody wants to be that lever.
Oh yeah, and it'll push the lever away if you sense that the person has given you that much power over them. But I remember years ago, there was this guy that I really liked, and he was coming to town, and he had called me, and, like, let's say it was a Tuesday, and I knew that I was going to be hanging out with him on Wednesday, and suddenly I went from just feeling kind of however I felt before, not great, but not sad, but just kind of, just regular, to, like, I was so excited, and all of a sudden the world had hope, and and beauty, and just it was like someone had sprinkled, like, dust, fairy dust or something, or it was like Christmas was the next day, or it was all those things. And by the way, I say this with the caveat that this is back in the days of, like, very kind of unhealthy relationships, so that's not how I would approach things now, but this is a long time ago. And then I realized, but wait, nothing actually has changed about today. Tuesday that has gone from being just another Tuesday to, like, oh my God, I'm so excited, like, untouchable. Nothing can get rid of this great mood I'm suddenly in. I realized, but there's nothing manifest that is different about it. So maybe I could just remember how this feels and just start, like, feeling it when I want on my own.
Yes. Yeah. Think about that.
Yeah.
That, see, right there, that is the beginning of it all. Because there's theoretically, and I've met people, and I 100% believe that they've gotten very close to that state. You can really be in that state. And strangely, and here's what they say, that is your natural state.
Right.
That is who you are. You're constantly in a state of bliss, love, and joy. You're always there, but this has been obscured by dust on the lens of a light. Mm-hmm. It's been obscured, and every once in a while that dust gets cleared off and the light shines out, and the light is what light makes everything bright. It's not like the stuff is glowing from inside itself. It's like what you're seeing is the beauty of your being reflected in everything around you, because that's really what you are.
Right.
And that's why when I say it's not that intoxication it's bad, it's that most forms of human intoxication are limited, and there's ways to experience, like, what's considered to be the ultimate high, which is a state of
bliss,
constant connection and bliss. Who knows, though? It could be all a myth, but man, I swear to God, I've talked to these people, I've met them, and they are not faking it. Like, it is not fake. Like, through their spiritual practice, they've achieved a state that is very beautiful and loving and sweet and makes you want to be around them all the time, and also helps you evolve. It just being around someone who's like, like right now, being in Adam Carolla's studio here and having my own podcast, and being in like the mothership of podcasts where I see like how far someone can go with a podcast, it's inspiring to me. It's like, holy shit, man, this is it makes me happy to think like, wow, this is where it can go. That's exciting. In the same way, when you're around someone who's like spent a life meditating or even hasn't yet, has still stumbled upon this truth, fuck, it really lights you up and gives you the sense of like, wow.
Well, see, that in a way, that's a bit of what I get from listening to your podcast. These reminders that there's this other way to be.
Well, yeah, and I, this like, I don't think, and in the podcast, I try to be very honest about where I'm at as a person, as opposed to what these ideas are, because many of these ideas that I'm saying, I've taken from spending a lot of time reading this stuff and being, into it since I was a kid, and I have had success with it, but success is such a dumb word to apply to it, but I think that it's a worthwhile thing to spend your time thinking and talking about. And from talking about it with other people, it definitely like helps. It helps me too, because it helps work out the ideas. It's a dialogue, You want to get in the conversation. That's all. Just get in the conversation. You can be the laziest, filthiest, angriest, craziest, saddest person ever. And that does not mean that you can't start meditating or start contemplating these ideas, Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is I've been around people who have, a few times in my life, who've spent a long time meditating. And they radiate something. And it's the same kind of thing in every single one of them that I've ever met. I do not radiate that fucking thing, but because of being around them, it's definitely inspired me to investigate it.
Yeah.
It's made it my number one interest. Because, no money can't buy that. Like, no matter how much fucking success you get, you cannot purchase that glow. Which means it's bigger than money. It's bigger than wealth. It's bigger than success. It's bigger than anything. It's the ultimate thing. And if you have it, then all the money and wealth and success, or all the tragedy and chaos and catastrophe, becomes irrelevant because you've obtained this beautiful state. And if that state's real, it's kind of like in way back when people started thinking that there might be North America and Europe, there might be this other continent, And people started coming back and saying, yeah, it's fucking there. It's there, man, and it's filled with gold. If you hear that. In the same way, if you hear that there is this state, a transcendent state of consciousness that is accessible to any human being right now, that will make it so that you're walking around in the state of deep and profound love that generally you've only experienced in relation to the person that you've met in your life, that only happens a few times, then you should explore that and see if it's real. And if it isn't, then stop the exploration. But my investigation into the thing has shown me that definitely disciplined meditation will elevate my mood state in a way that I stop being a blathering cunt. And
Is that what you tend towards?
Oh yeah, like I just was like, as an example, I was at a hotel recently, and this is so embarrassing to say, but I'm just going to say it.
Please.
I was at a hotel, and I locked my key in the room. And because I was on the road, they'd put their name on the room, so I went down and didn't have my ID. I'm like, hey, I locked myself out. Can I get another key? Here's my ID. They're like, well, your name's not in the room. We can't let you in. And I'm like, man, do you think that I just wandered in off the street and made up a random room number that I'm hoping you'll let me into? I mean, like, I can show you my stuff in there. I can prove that it's mine. It's like, sorry, sir, it's policy. It's like 2 a.m. I'm so fucking tired, a little drunk. And it just came out of me. I said, you're a fucking cocksucker to this guy, to a man who's just doing his job.
Right.
But it came out of me, the anger, the venom, whatever's inside of me, the darkness shot out of me for a second, and boom, Now I've created reaction. Now I've created the security guards looking over there. The guy might call the cops now. I've created a miserable condition for myself by not being in control of my actions and by being too attached to the way I felt, which was just some kind of outrage over the fact that this guy's doing his job. So that's in me. And that comes out sometimes, which is why... you know how people will be like, I don't like to go to church because the people there are dicks. And it's like, yeah, in the same way that people in the emergency room have cuts and are sick. Like, most people who come to a spiritual practice, they're not coming to the spiritual practice because they're already happy.
Right. Yeah.
They're coming there because it's like, fuck, I don't want to be a venomous snake. I don't want to.
There's a bunch of drunks in AA.
Yes, exactly. I don't like going to AA because there's all these fucking alcoholics.
Wait, so what happened with the room? How'd you get in?
I got in because the person was in a different room and I got them to come down and I apologized to the guy. I got back to my room. I called him. I'm like, I am so sorry. And he was cool, but still, it doesn't matter. I still was reactive and I was reactive in a vicious and gross way. And that, that's all we can do in those situations is you can't, like, you're not going to get anything more out of it by beating yourself up, but it definitely shows me where there's work to be done.
Yeah. It
definitely shows me that, I should have no illusion about where I'm at because there's some cocksucker living in me.
All right. Well, with that said, I think it's time for some Just Me or Everyone.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
All right. F This Ish says, is it just me that wonders what's at the bottom of my belly button? Needless to say, I shop in the husky section. Now, does he mean the lint that lives there, or what specifically is he talking about? Or does he mean below? He doesn't mean below. He means inside, right?
Well, he's heavy.
Right, but see, what's throwing me is bottom. I would say like what's inside my belly button. I can understand that, but what is he considering the bottom? And by the way, on the Adam Carolla show yesterday, I must admit we were talking about something being under a tree. We were talking about song lyrics where someone hid a diary under a tree, and for like the first 3 minutes or something, my brain was imagining under the ground, under the tree. I don't know why I complicated it. Gary's looking at me like I'm an idiot.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, but they just meant like under the shade of the tree. But instead, I was being super literal, and I was like, why would someone, like, how would you even get under the roots of the tree?
No, when you said that, I pictured like a pirate bearing his dumb diary or whatever.
Right. Thank you. All right. Glad that I'm not the only one.
You're
That is
not the
not
only
just me. So anyway, do you wonder what's at the bottom of your belly button?
What is...
I know it's confusing what he means by that. We're going to need more clarification.
This is a heavy person.
Yes.
So heavy people, they get stuff caught under the folds of their fat.
Oh, is that what he means?
Well, yeah, because he's saying, like, because he's heavy, like, he can't explore his belly button as easily as it is for maybe people who are not in such big bodies. So he might have, like...
gummy bears?
Or
Fruit
a kitten could have died in there. It could be like a decomposing kitten. I heard about this happening where... a woman went to the doctor, and in one of the folds of her fat was a moldering kitten carcass that had gotten trapped in there and died. So he's probably wondering.
That's apocryphal.
It could be something. It could be like when you're heavy, man. I mean, it's like stuff gets in there. Stuff gets in deep.
All right, so it's not just you. But
now everyone's wondering what's at the bottom of your belly button.
Okay. Boudoir Babe says, whenever I see someone take a hit of weed on TV or in a movie, I unconsciously hold my breath as well. We just had, recently someone wrote in and said in a movie when people are underwater, they hold their breath. I don't think I do that. Although if someone is laughing on TV or they're upset, I will smile or I will kind of frown, like to mirror their image, as if I'm talking to them.
Yes.
Because I am a super deep empathetic person, or I forget what reality is and what fiction is. Do you do this? Do you hold your breath?
Nope.
Okay. Gary?
Nope.
All right. Let's see. Ask Please says, I get self-conscious when eating food in my car at stoplights. I feel like the strangers waiting next to me are judging. I rarely eat in my car, so I don't have that. And I also don't think I would, though, because I tend to think of my car as like invisible, even though it's so not.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the food.
Yeah. What would be an embarrassing thing to eat?
Human hand.
So true. Or what else? Like lick a stick? Pixie sticks?
I think pixie sticks are okay. People aren't really going to know what it is. But
Right.
I think like a big old slice of pizza. Like you're at a
Yes.
stoplight chomping
Right.
on your pepperoni pie. Then you're going to look like a
Or
dick.
even a submarine sandwich or something like that.
Oh, a big old sub, and
Yeah.
you're trying to it's like bumping against the windshield.
Yeah.
So yeah, you should give I mean, you probably shouldn't be eating and driving anyway.
Right. Gary?
Yeah, I definitely don't eat and drive, so this doesn't apply to me. But I think that the person's name is Ask P. Liz.
Oh.
So shout
Ask
out to P. Liz.
Hi, P. Liz. Okay, Maureen.
By the way, P. Liz is going to really be self-conscious eating when there's a feeding tube going into her mouth because she's a paraplegic and wasn't paying attention when she was chomping on her burger in rush hour and gotten a T-bone because she ran a light. So yes, don't eat and drive, folks.
Maybe she's just enjoying
eating and
cruise
driving
day.
kills 20,000 people a year.
Really?
No, I don't know.
Okay. I know. Maureen Burke says, I think that meteors, hawks, and dragonflies are my dad saying hi from heaven. I chose that one, Duncan, because I wanted to know what you thought of that.
First of all, I want to know where she fucking lives. Well, it sounds like she
Yeah,
lives in
I
the
know.
greatest place, like all these meteors and hawks and dragonflies.
You're right.
That's amazing. That's like where she lives. She lives in a wardrobe somewhere, I guess.
No.
All these pans. I think all these pans playing their flute or
She's in Fantasia.
listen, I think it's sweet as hell. I think it's a beautiful way to think that your dad is communicating with you, and I think that if it's interesting to consider the mechanism of control. Like, does her dad have like a control room in heaven where
he's like
presses a button, send a
Hawks.
meteor?
Okay, I must say, I like the imagery of it, but hawks and dragonflies?
Hawks are very vicious beings, you know? But the dragonflies, meteors, hawks, and dragonflies, it sounds like a
Lyric?
lyric, yeah.
Like, I feel like rainbows. People usually go with rainbows more often if you're going to see a sign.
I just think God's an asshole that the only way he lets dead people communicate with living people is through natural events. Like, what about
Katrina?
a fucking telegram?
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. Right.
Instead of sending a
send
hawk.
a text message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can control hawks and falling star particulates, can you not send a text, Dad?
Yeah. Okay.
Because we transform human society by knowing that you're in heaven.
Yeah. All right. Al Vals says, when I don't know the words to a song, I either make them up or just say the words that don't exist to the music of the song. Oh, yes. Yes. If I just spoke about this actually recently. I had Here We Go Again stuck in my head, but I had Here I Go Again on my own, like a Twizzler, I was born to walk alone. Not the lyric.
Better than any
I know,
lyric.
yeah. And then some. This is
God,
a
I
retread.
love that. Like a Twizzler, I was born to.
walk alone.
That
It
creates
was like
this.
so stuck in my head too.
That created the most amazing image of, like, you know, in the Hulk, where. Did you ever watch the Hulk TV show?
Yeah.
He's this
When I was
loner
really
who's
little.
a hitchhiker, but it just created this idea of like a Twizzler
Carrying
at
a backpack?
sunset
Yeah.
with a backpack, like walking down some lonely highway. I love that.
And evidently, when I was like 3 or something, I was quietly singing to myself, Edelweiss, and I was like, Edelweiss, you belong at Gemco.
What's Gemco?
I don't know. It must have been some store from way back when, and my parents thought she's around commercials way too much. Oh yeah, and then someone tweeted me that my theme song they had stuck in their head is Alison Rosen, Scooby Dooby Doo, do that dance again, which I think is amazing. Those are not the lyrics, but
That is a great those are great.
I don't know. Okay. Too much Dutch. I won't drink the last splash of coffee in my cup for some reason. This isn't the case with any other beverage. I drink the last splash of coffee in mine, so that's just you, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't
same.
think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just drink it.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, what's the.
But I still always think not with coffee, but when I see someone drinking like the last sip of soda, that childhood thing, 90% backwash.
I do that with beer.
You think 90%
No,
backwash?
I won't drink like the last splash in like a beer because it's usually kind of gross.
It is warm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. No matter what, you're swallowing your spit, you know? Like, it's going to go down your throat no matter what. If it's in your beer or in your mouth, you might
Right.
as well drink it.
Right. Yeah, I feel like once the spit has left you, though, it doesn't need to come back.
I mean, this is a curious thing. Yeah, I don't know I'm not a scientist. But I guess like the idea is that your spit leaves your mouth and suddenly it becomes infested with bacteria.
Yeah.
Even though your mouth is like, open, talking and breathing in bacteria constantly that's just swimming around in your saliva right now.
Speaking of that, zero return wet the toothbrush before use. Well, yeah, who doesn't?
Well, I think he means like first water on the toothbrush, then layer the paste.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I do. You don't?
Oh
would
yeah,
put-
I guess I do. I mean, at the risk of seeming unhygienic, I'll have to go back and look. But
I don't think it seems
water, paste,
Or would you put paste on a dry brush?
well, paste and then water on both.
Some people do that.
I think
but
I do that.
We don't. Gary and I and Zero
God,
Return don't.
I'm disgusting.
No, I don't think it's a disgusting thing. It's sort of like some people pee sitting down, some pee standing up. Diana Pooh says, when I see someone on a payphone, I wonder if it's someone asking for ransom. I don't do that, but I like that.
Well, that's just someone who does cocaine all the time. That's like a paranoid state. Like if you're like driving, I know that I've gotten way too high if I start thinking shit like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, they're asking for ransom.
I think, or it could just be sort of an idle, like whenever I see two people near each other on cell phones, I think to myself, I wonder if they're talking to each other. I don't really wonder.
I wonder if this person is just really young, and the idea of anyone using a payphone is just so ludicrous to them that you must be doing something nefarious.
Right. That's
Oh,
it.
maybe.
I
That's
think
it.
that's what it is.
That's
Okay.
it.
Okay.
She's a youngie.
She just joined Twitter and tweeted me yesterday and said I was her first tweet, and that this is her favorite podcast. Oh. So she's delightful.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Solid Snake 420. Every time I use Listerine, I have to piss immediately after, even if I just did before using Listerine. That's weird. I think that's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
That's a strange.
That's definitely odd.
Right.
That's just you, man.
I mean, are you not draining it enough the first time? Okay.
No, here's what you do. You need to trace back in your mind the first time you used Listerine, because guaranteed your aunt fisted you that day or something.
Yeah, he picked up a bad vibe in his urethra that day.
Yeah. Your aunt shoved her finger into your pee hole that day. Trust me, it happened to all of us, friend.
Stored 101. Stop the microwave 1 second before the timer goes off. I do all sorts of weird shit with numbers and with timers and things like that. So yes, I can talk myself into, oh my God, it's bad luck if I let the microwave go all the way. I have to stop it.
Bad luck.
It's just something weird.
I just don't like the thing beeping really loud, so I stop it.
I don't. Oh yeah, I don't like that either.
But
Yeah.
I'm not scared that the roof will implode or something.
Well, I don't actually think it's actually bad luck. You know, I've talked about this before. I have all sorts of weird number superstitions, even though I don't think of myself as a superstitious person, with the exception of I don't like when people open umbrellas indoors. I really don't believe in much or anything, except I don't like to wake up on a 0 or a 5. And I don't like the
I don't believe in much, but this is what I subscribe to, folks.
I don't like, if I do 30 seconds on the microwave, I'll stop it so that 30 didn't run all the way. I'll stop it so that it only like 27 or 23 or 29 or something.
Sure.
But I would prefer to put 33 on there, then it can go all the way. I'm sure you guys are the same.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh yes, I was raised right. That's how I was taught to live.
But the reason I don't think I'm crazy is because if for some reason I have to get up on a 0 or a 5, or the microwave has to run 30 seconds and then beep, I will be okay.
Right.
I don't have to like spin around 4 times to my left yelling quark or something. It's a good idea to, but I don't have to.
Does that fix it?
But probably, yeah.
Who knows?
Similarly, I have a magic 8-ball. But I won't ask it any morbid questions. No morbid questions is the rule. Like, I won't say, if someone I know is flying, are they going to make it? You know, because that's unfair to them, and it brings down the whole plane.
Well, you never fucking know, man. I mean, not to add to this, not to add to the paranoia of superstition, but if we exist in a multiverse where every single possible thing is happening at once, which is an idea some people have, like everything's happening at once, all possibilities are happening at the same time, then perhaps, but that 8 ball, that shift in the movement of the 8 ball
blue
could
fluid.
create, the blue fluid,
tiny wave
it
of
could
energy.
create a chain reaction that ends
right.
up causing whatever the rotor is in the engine of the plane to fly off midair and cause the. It's not going to happen.
Right, too much power.
It's not.
I
real.
know. I don't really believe that. But okay, this idea that all possibilities are happening at once.
Multiverse theory.
Yes, this is something that my boyfriend and I have discussed because he is like more well-read on all of that. And to me, I'm like, that's an interesting theory or notion, but there's actually science suggesting that is the case, yes?
Yeah.
Like this, like there's sort of quantum physics and things kind of dovetail with this, and that's where I'm lost.
Well, they want to there's I think pure theories because I'm not sure anyone's proven it though. Like some people, I've read that gravity itself could be the force of some other universe sort of merging with ours. I saw some documentary on that. Weird shit like that. I don't understand quantum physics, but I do think that we sort of, our understanding of how big the universe is we seems to grow with our technology. As our technology accelerates, the universe gets bigger because the lens that we look through is becoming more and more advanced. So it went from us thinking there were, 7 planets to now we're like, there seems to be an
6.
infinite number of Yeah, now there's 4.
Yeah.
No, but
It gets bigger and bigger.
there seems to be an infinite number of galaxies. And of course, the implication is that of those galaxies, there's probably life-supporting planets. But based just on that as our technology advances, the universe gets bigger, I think it stands to reason that they're going to realize that there's actually more than just one universe.
Right.
There's
but
infinite universes in the same way that there's infinite galaxies.
why would this is to someone who understands this is a dumb question, but to someone who doesn't, this is my question. As someone who doesn't. But why would there be another me on the other planet?
Well, I think the idea is that in an infinite, if we're playing in the field of infinity, then that means not that every single thing is happening.
See.
Infinite possibility, every single moment is happening, but you're just in one part of the frequency of what you are.
Right. Right. Sort of like light is the whole spectrum of colors, but you're just red.
That's it.
But at all times, okay. So it's like a flashlight or something. Like at all times, the whole beam is happening, but you're just only aware of one.
Yeah, and yes, or another way to put it is, so right now there's literally millions of things that you could do from the most extreme to the most minimal in every single moment in this studio, right? And so, the idea is each of those things kind of create tributaries that lead you to other, like that lead in certain directions of what you are. Mm-hmm. And so all those tributaries are happening at once. So if you believe that time does not exist or is a product of neurology, then that means literally every single thing that could happen is happening right now. And that's amazing, because if every single thing that could happen is happening, then the idea is that we can connect with specific nodes of the multiverse that we would like to merge with. And that's goal setting. So when you're setting a goal, you're creating in your mind a kind of GPS coordinate for the part of the multiverse that you want to be existing in. And then you move in that direction and merge with it, which is also, people say that's what prayer is. You're kind of like praying to the place of like pure potentiality that you're already at to navigate towards it. Who knows, man? I don't know, but I love it. I love it because it gives you, these kinds of ideas give you handles that you can use to navigate through life instead of just sort of walking through it in a hypnotic slumber, as so many people are. It's fun to think. Even if it's not real, it's fun to think that right now existing is the ultimate version of you, whatever that may be. I don't know what it is, but whatever that might, the way that you most perfectly see yourself, it's fun to think you're already that person.
Yeah.
It's already there. She's right there.
She's right here.
Ah,
I mean,
that's
not really, but
beautiful.
thanks. You know what? Go ahead.
Yeah, why not? You're super cool. I could see that. Sure.
Well, thanks. And by the way, I know that you and Pete Holmes are friends.
Yeah.
I want to be friends with you guys, not just podcast friends.
Be friends with us.
I would love to be friends with you.
Yeah, I would love that too. I mean, this is the problem. We're all doing these podcasts and we're all meeting each other, but somehow we've gotten in this situation where unless we're recording our conversations, we can't
I'm
hang
not
out.
like that. I know Pete is. I'm not jockeying for position, but I know Pete's like that. I'm not like that.
Yeah,
I'm
Pete,
just
where?
kidding.
Hey, Holmes, where are? He's so busy right now. That's
Yeah.
a busy guy because he got that.
Please, so you probably need another friend then.
I need
Me.
yes, done.
Okay.
Pals.
Excellent. All right. And here's an awkward segue. You guys, you might be wanting to buy something on Amazon. You probably are because they have everything. Just like the multiverse contains all possibilities and all infinities.
Yes.
Infinities can't be plural, but it just was.
Yeah, I guess it can be.
Infinite with an AE like antenna. It's just an infinity. Amazon contains an infinity of stuff. I mean, not an infinity, but a whole hell of a lot. And you might need that. And you probably are going to buy it on Amazon because it's so easy and it's simple. And why not click through the banner on my website, AlisonRosen.com, because that helps out the show and it doesn't cost you anything extra. And that would be delightful. And I would love if you could do that. Okay.
And bookmark it.
Yeah, yes. To clear your cookies and bookmark it. That's what I meant to say. Duncan, where can we find you?
DuncanTrussell.com is where my podcast is, and I'm Duncan Trussell, Trussell on Twitter. Say hi.
Yeah, say hi. And are you doing any stand-up or anything that we should know about, or maybe we just check your website and we'll
all the
encounter
dates.
it?
I've got a tour coming up. I'm going to be in Dallas and Austin and Houston, and I'm going to North Carolina this weekend, and then Vancouver the weekend after. So just check it out. All the dates are there.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been delightful. And you guys can follow me on Twitter at Alison Rosen. You can follow the show's Twitter feed at ARIYNBF. You can follow Gary at GPatrickSmith. And you can email us at ARIYNBF@AdamCarolla.com. And don't forget to leave some iTunes comments. Click 5 stars if you think it deserves it, or even if you don't. And then we can include those in our iTunes comment of the week. And I love you guys, and thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, do you know about the Alison Rosen Show? We had a good time, but now we gotta go. Thank you for choosing the Alison Rosen Show. Alison Rosen is your new best friend. That's right. That's right. Those good times don't seem to end. That's right. That's right. Alison Rosen is your new best friend. Hey, do you know about the Alison Rosen Show? We had a good time, but now it's time to go. Hope to see you next time for the Alison Rosen Show. Yeah!
This is Corolla Digital.